What is up, Earthnoids and Spacenoids? I am just a simple new type, and in this episode, we're concluding our coverage of Mobile Suit Gundam Rise from the Ashes. Last time, the team went up against an Adsum Olga, who took out the Northern Defense Team. Pio ended up being a mole for Zeon, and the White Dingos got the new Gym Sniper 2. This time, the White Dingos go to stop the HLVs from launching. Machi Menitao takes over the base, and Rayer and Donahue have their final battle. So let's get into this. Anita tells the team that 6 Goose are approaching their location. They split up and try to flank the team. They are doing a 2-4 split. Anita tries to isolate the comms to see if she could pinpoint the commander, but there is too much chatter on the airwaves. Who knows who is leading the pack? Rayer tells the team not to take these goofs lightly. He realizes that the team is new, they don't know the terrain like they do. He decides to fall back to get the high ground near the HLV launch complex. Zeon begins their attack, but they note that they are already pulling back. The commander thinks it is a trap, but he pushes forward anyways. Of course, it was a trap. 2 units take the high ground and pick off the goofs, while Rayer pushes the middle. Zeon notes that these units are too mobile to be normal gyms. They have a standoff before the goofs make the first move. The White Dingos mow them down as they have them surrounded. Anita tells Dr. Grant that this battle was over in a few seconds, but if Rayer hesitated for 1 second, this would have ended differently for the White Dingos. Rayer thinks that his team is a part of the Thunderclap team. He believes they are pulling out cracked teams to fill in the gaps of their defenses, as they shouldn't have ran into anyone. They continue on with their mission of stopping the HLV. Nearby, Zeon spots a Fetty fleet above them in low Earth orbit. They stick to their plan and launch one of the HLVs. The White Dingos notice. Mike takes aim and fires, but misses the HLV. They don't believe Astaroth was on it. They have intel that there will be 2 more launches. Astaroth will be on one of them. There is no logical reason to think this, but he ends up being right. Zeon celebrates the launching of an HLV when Nearlight's thugs walk in and just begins massacring everyone in the air traffic control tower. They assume control of the HLVs. He mentions if push comes to shove, they can turn the HLVs into a firework factory. Donahue informs Uriah that Thomas and his boys were just wiped out. He is certain that this is the White Dingo team. He is splitting his team into 2 and moving in. Donahue is given the green light to start this operation. Anita spots a mobile armor ahead of them. She says it is packing the same heat signature as a power plant. Lung mentions that in the early days of the war, the Fetties lost track of a burst liner. Well, that explains how one variant of the Rhino was made. Rayer thinks it won't be swift, so they can move around its attacks, but it will be very hard for them to move it. This burst liner has a 5-second cooldown according to their intel. They get a visual on the Rhino. The nihilistic old man assumes control of all stations and tells his men to abandon ship. He says you can't stop a warhorse's last ride. Anita mentions that the weight-to-power ratio is off. The Rhino weighs a lot to compensate for Newton's second law of motion. There's also a spot on the unit that is generating insane amounts of radiation, and is probably the place you want to shoot it to go boom. They start flanking the unit. The Rhino can spin its turrets faster than they thought. He doesn't allow the White Dingos to get on his 6. As this is a hover vehicle, he is able to spin around swiftly, focusing on Mike. This exposes his 6 to Rayer, who rushes in. The Rhino spins back around and fires. Rayer uses his shield and dodges, barely missing the beam blast. The Rhino's generator is fried. Rayer flips around the machine, getting behind it once again. He fires his bazooka and takes out the Rhino. Rayer's gym goes into safe mode from overheating. Because of the shield, his gym barely took any damage, though you could fry an egg on his shield right now. The gym half shield comes in handy once again. They push forward to the HLV. At the base, Nearlight talks to Uriah. He wants to know how Machi Manito took over the base. He wants to know how he knew he was in the control tower. Uriah says perhaps there is a mole in your ranks. 30 minutes earlier, Gioconda and Tina are getting radio silence and unsure of what their next move should be. They head to the control room where they find Nearlight and his team. They make up an excuse and leave, apologizing for coming in. They start running after getting out of there. Gioconda mentions that the base has been taken over by Caecilia's team, Machi Menito. Back in the present, Nearlight says that the control room is a fortress in its own right, and they can handle a siege attack for a month. He dares Uriah to test that. He says to Nearlight he has no idea what's going on and tells him to surrender. Nearlight shoots the TV and cuts off the comms. Uriah cuts the power and backup power to the control room. He contacts Lieutenant Tyson and tells him that he has to handle the launches manually. They prepare to launch the second HLV. They must get Astaroth to Lady Caecilia. Uriah informs Donahue about the rogue team. They have to ensure that the HLV is taken out while taking care of the White Dingo team. Donahue decides that he's going to fight the White Dingos and lure them in to take out the HLV, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But in this case, the stone is a beam blast that vaporizes you. He says he will take out the team and get the last HLV out of here. They are soldiers, not samurai. As much as he seems like an honorable warrior from past experience, ultimately he just wants his boys alive. Anita informs the White Dingos that units are approaching. Rare thinks it is Doms, but it is slightly different. It is Vish Donahue and the Gelgoog. He rushes in, which they think is Dom. Little do they know, the Gelgoog is the first Zeon mobile suit equipped with a beam rifle. This throws them off as Donahue attacks Mike. He is down, but his mobile suit is still functioning at 70%. Rare notices that he has a long cooldown in between beam blasts. The Thunderclap team strafes around them. Anita points out that they are trying to corral them towards the launch pad. He realizes he is trying to get the HLV thrusters to vaporize them. This isn't the warrior that Rare fought in the past. This is a soldier trying to survive. He remembers the cool and collected Vish Donahue that he met in the past. But Rare too is a soldier and must get things done. Rare chases Donahue while Anita follows behind. He tells Mike and the others to prepare to hide in the drain pipe and bust out after the launch. They have to time this attack perfectly. Everyone follows Mike, with the exception of Rare, who tries to shoot at the HLV. He has 2 seconds to get into the drain pipe before the HLV launches, or he is vaporized. He gets into the drain pipe. His attacks worked as the HLV goes up in flames. However, at that same time, the final HLV launches a few hundred meters away. This one contains Astaroth. Nearlight smiles, but suddenly it is struck down and explodes. It wasn't the White Dingo's sniper, Mike. It was actually Lung. Mike says he has what it takes to be a sniper. Rare comes out of the rubble. The HLVs are down, and their mission is complete. That is when Donahue's Gelgoog approaches. He shoots at the control tower, taking out Nearlight in one blast. So much for trying to survive a siege attack for 1 month. Vish Donahue's mission is also complete. There is nothing left but for the two to fight. Rare tells Mike and Lung to stand down. He pulls out his beam saber, and Donahue unleashes his beam Naginata. He says he may be wearing the wrong uniform. The two begin fighting. Anita yells at Mike and Lung and tell them to snap out of it. This is war, and Fetties are about to swarm this place. The two units run at one another, but just before he attacks, Donahue backs down, allowing Rare to stab him in the chest. All this wearing the wrong uniform nonsense was just a ruse. He was just buying a little bit of time to allow his men to flee. He says humans are a walking contradiction. Blech. And then he just dies. Moments later, the Federation swarm the base. They send out a worldwide broadcast informing everyone that a peace treaty has been signed and to lay down arms. If the Fetties showed up 1 minute earlier, Vish Donahue may still be alive. Rare is furious. 1 month later, Dr. Olivia Grant is on one last survey mission for Rare. When the HLV was shot down, Astaroth went down with it. He wants Grant to travel to Bruin City, as he wants to know if Donahue's death was worth it. Most of Zeon fled the continent by now, most likely heading to Africa. The cloud of dust is thick from the colony drop, and the sun barely breaks through. But even so, a swine sauna flower, native to Australia, blossoms. Life finds a way. She has no way of truly knowing. But she likes to think that the people of Zeon are living on, and in some part that is thanks to Vish Donahue. Maya and Walter Curtis await a freighter. Many of the people of Moon and Hewington were able to flee thanks to the HLV attack at Hewington. When Uriah said to Nearlight that he has no idea what he is doing, he didn't realize that Walter Curtis's plan was to ensure most Australian Zeon teams survive and flee. Of course, he was working for Caecilia and on his own path. But the Zeon remnants that remained in Australia were too stubborn to play out Walter Curtis's Operation Staircase to the Moon. They all could have lived, but some chose a horrible path of starving to death. We see some of these remnant groups in other manga. They all end up starving and going insane. Walter reminds Maya he is no longer a captain. Dr. Grant gets in her Jeep and turns on the radio where people are telling their post-1-year war stories. The DJ gets a request to play a song called Together in the Future. Grant drives off as she listens to the song, wondering her own future. And that will conclude our coverage of Mobile Suit Gundam Ground Zero Rise from the Ashes. I wasn't sure about this as it had a slow start, but boy, this ending is a masterclass in how to write a compelling villain. I get all the thunderclap love. No, not that thunderclap love. That's contagious! That being said, I didn't play the video game. If you played the video game, you know what's coming. Does that ruin the manga for you? Let me know. Now that we have finished this fan favorite, we will probably dive back into Missing Link as we have to fill in the gaps of our Blue Destiny coverage. But that will do it for now, new types. Remember, Vish Donahue actually turned out to be the honorable soldier in the end. He tricked us! Peace.